This is my Let It Be GarageBand arrangement, um, and I want to talk you through how I've made this piece. So I've tried to create, I've tried to use various instruments kind of similar to the original, kind of rock pop instruments, um, based around the chords on the piano at the start, played generally one chord per bar, the muted bass, and string ensemble. I then bring in more brass sounds, the roots rock guitar, and the bluegrass banjo. I've then got a clav sound as well, playing the chords, an organ, and a kind of gospel choir, similar to what you hear in the original. Now, some of these sounds you won't find immediately when you open up the instrument drawer here, such as the banjo. That's not immediately apparent. So if you're looking for an instrument you can't find, type it in here, and often you'll find some interesting other instruments. Okay. So the melody begins on the trumpet here. I then bring in the roots guitar here, and for the A minor section, the kind of second section, you could call it a chorus. We have the saxophones playing harmony here. I wait until the C major section coming back to bring in the drums, and to do that I have this drum fill leading into it. I have this breakdown section in the middle, an organ kind of ascending idea here, and then trying to kind of create more of a climax at the end. So the beginning sounds like this. Pressing A for automation brings up this darkened screen like this, okay? Now you'll see, as you go along, I haven't really done much to the automation at all, apart from sections like this section when I bring in the organ. So if you find this section you want to bring it in a bit more gently or sensitively, you want to play around with this. Now to do that, double click to create these dots, and then you can move sections up or down to create a difference in volume, because you can see here I've got it set to volume. To get rid of them, just double click. If you want to play around with different effects within the automation section, you can click down on this window here and play around with different effects. So once I've done this first section here, you can see I then expand the strings. So starting with just a bass string and then harmonies. The bass, you probably can't hear it through the speakers alongside it. This guitar I've tried to make sound quite real by just kind of doing ascending arpeggio sounds. Now for this next section, the Let It Be, A minor section, I've recorded the normal melody and then I've harmonized it here. Now you may notice that once I've got in some of these sections like these chords, I've just repeated them. So these three parts are all repeats. Recorded them for the first 8 bars, then repeated them twice more here, okay? So a lot of these sections, if you zoom out, are just repeated. It might be a bit difficult to see right there, but they are repeated. So it may look like lots of work, but once you've recorded something in, edited it, make sure it's in time alongside the click, double clicked it, and looked at the notes and made sure all of them are in the right place, they've then been copied and pasted. Okay, so for this section I've tried to change the melody. The trumpet melody here in the trumpets and saxophones is generally the same as the first time it was heard, but I've changed some notes. So even though it's taking the same root, it is slightly varied. So you can see it's kind of similar, but some of those notes are still within the scale, but they're not exactly the same as the original. I wanted to introduce a little bit of variation so that I wasn't just copying exactly the same as what's in the original. Okay, so how have I created contrast here? You can see, even without listening to the chords, these chords have changed from one per bar to a different pattern here. So now the chords in the piano are taking a bit more of a rhythm. I've changed the drum pattern. And instead of the melody being on the trumpet mainly before and the saxophone, it's now still on the saxophone, but it's generally led by the organ. Okay, breakdown section here, okay, so I wanted to keep the momentum, so I've got this very quiet, subtle hi-hat playing through here. But I've got the chords on the piano and then the organ down below. And you may hear this ascending idea, trying to mimic what some organists might do. Sounds quite catchy. They push their fingers across the keys all the way up to create this sliding ascending idea. Listen to that again. Now, to create this subtlety in the drums, if you listen to my drums there on their own, now through the MacBook speakers you might not be able to hear, but I've actually done something with the automation. So within this piano roll window like this, if you click on this button here, hover over it and it will show automation, okay? So for velocity here, you can see that I brought these up. Now this velocity affects how hard or soft the attack on the beginning of the note is, okay? So for drums, I've got a crescendo through these velocities. So I think that works quite well because this is quite a quiet section here and it leads us back in well. So if you want to affect this, apply this to your drums, you need to open up that automation section. And then gradually I just bring in each track towards the end. And the big thing I've done at the end, which you could maybe not see on the original piece here, is if you press track and show tempo track here, this is how you can manipulate the tempo. So normally it's up there, it says 120. At the end, I wanted it to have a nice slowdown. So if you press a double click, or you just one click, you can manipulate different sections of the tempo. So I would recommend that parts like the ending, it's a good way of slowing down and bringing the piece to a really nice, grandiose ending. So play around with those and see if you can apply any of these techniques to make your piece sound and be more effective.